Hey, listener, Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM 89.0, ArrowFM, and MPR. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Adio.
We just had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, so we also, because of the timing of the show, we also have the SmackDown before Hell in a Cell, which usually we could just roll into the pay-per-view, but there were some important things that didn't have pay-per-view connotations, so we're going to roll the clock back a little bit, and we're going to talk about some Friday night SmackDown stuff. Kevin Owens, he won the ladder match. Technically, Shane McMahon is terminated.
Yeah, there were no shenanigans as I thought there might be.
And this was, it seems to be the end of. WWE.com might be messing with us because they moved Kevin Owens to alumni, but...
They moved him several weeks ago when he was fired by Sting.
Gotcha, they just failed to move him back.
Yeah.
So this also puts a...
Technically, he hasn't been rehired yet officially. He just won that match.
That is true. It kind of... Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe what you just said gives him an out, but it kind of puts a bit of a dampener on the... going back to NXT. You know, you just ridded SmackDown of the big evil, and then I run away. But that'll probably all clear up in the coming week.
Yeah, especially with the draft starting on Friday.
Yeah, so next week's show is pretty much going to be entirely the draft edition, where it's just, you know, we got the SmackDown and the Raw, both of the draft, and we're just going to go hard on that. See where all the chips land, and who gets drafted to NXT or from. And maybe that'll answer a few questions that we still have burning. But one man who made his debut early is one Cain the Beast Slayer.
Cain Velasquez.
Who also took out Brock Lesnar, just on a different channel. Or the same, because they're on Fox now. I don't know when the switches happened for both sports.
Well, the Cain Velasquez Brock Lesnar fight, I swear that was on a pay-per-view.
Okay. So
I could be wrong, and that could have been the first Fox show. But I'm almost certain that the title fight itself was on pay-per-view. Brock's last fight was definitely on Fox.
Okay. Well, I've dragged us a little...
I'm not sure if it was against Velasquez.
I've dragged us a little bit off topic. First off, Kofi Kingston loses his belt to Brock Lesnar in about 3 seconds. Well, technically 4, I guess. You need 3 for the count. Before Kane emerges, setting up that feud for the WWE Championship.
Who says it's going to be for the WWE Championship?
Okay. Open up your book of ideas and throw something at me.
He just won't defend it against him. Plain and simple.
That's not... I was expecting some, like, shenanigans, something going on involving Ray, and then you're just like, nah, just be a non-title fight. That's a bit anticlimactic.
It's Brock Lesnar. You get away with that.
That's true. That's true. I'm going to leave that jab at that and move on to another man who's really good at jabbing. Boom. Sometimes my segues are good. Tyson Fury also getting himself involved in the WWE across Raw and SmackDown, because he was also on the Raw after the pay-per-view, getting some hands. Specifically Braun Strowman.
I'm very interested in this Tyson Fury Braun Strowman feud. Because I think this could be one of those situations where it could be even far better than Mayweather and Big Show was.
Okay.
Because Tyson Fury is a legitimate BA. And he is somebody who you could actually believe would beat up Braun Strowman in an actual fight. And there's not many men in this world that you can actually believe it. Cain Velasquez is another one of them, but that's a different story altogether.
We're not getting that match just yet.
No. But But this is actually something that could actually be very interesting to see how well Vasquez can adjust to the scripted nature of wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got now it's two sports stars jumping in and trying their hand, presumably setting up matches for our next big show around Halloween. So it's a little bit different, and it was Fox coming out swinging, or WWE coming out swinging on the debut, the season premiere. And they came out swinging pretty well, to be fair. That SmackDown, as much as people anticlimactic and can complain about the ending, it was still a good show, top to bottom. So, sorry, people, even if Austin didn't show up. Now, after all that, we're on to the pay-per-view. Now, there was a match on the pre-show. Bearing in mind that all but 4 of these matches were announced day of. There was a match on the pre-show. Natalya taking on Lacey Evans and defeating her. But I think the better of the 2 matches was actually on Raw the night after, where the 2 of them had a last woman standing match.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay. You're not a big fan of this one?
No, it wasn't actually that good of a last person standing match.
Okay.
I don't know what it was, but they didn't click in that match type. But yeah, it was pretty boring and a bad idea to start the show off with. That said, Natalya won, so where do we go from here with Lacey?
Yeah, it seemed as though Lacey was being set up as the number 2, and she's taken 2 straight losses and 2 straight nights against Natalya. So I don't know if that really elevates Natalya or really pushes Lacey Evans down the pecking order. Because Lacey's just coming back from the whole teaming with Baron and losing that mixed tag match, so she hasn't had a lot going for her recently. And speaking about the Raw Women's Division, that gives us a nice little segue to jump into the first match that was on the show. Becky Lynch successfully retaining her title because Sasha Banks is cursed.
I'm done. I'm done picking against Becky. I'm thoroughly believing that Becky will remain women's champion until WrestleMania.
Okay. It's reached that point now where you're just like, nah, if it's going this long, it's going all the way.
Yeah, it's going a full year.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm done.
But what you're saying is at WrestleMania you'll pick against her?
That's because I'm thinking that it'll go back to Ronda Rousey.
Yep. Okay. The scene's gonna be, WrestleMania is 6 months away. Mm-hmm. We don't know what it's all gonna look like by that time. All we know is that, Sasha Banks came back, had a 20-minute Hell in a Cell match. By the sounds of it, may have gotten herself a little scuffed up and didn't walk away with the championship. So the same question you just asked about Lacey, where do we go from here? I'm going to ask about Sasha Banks. Where do we go with here from her?
Well, the fact that she's injured again is just another sign that makes me always question. Everybody questions why she's not been pushed more. They can't rely on her, not in the sense of delivering matches. She's great, but they can't rely on her to be there week in, week out, because she's constantly getting hurt.
That is a fair enough statement.
Now, with all this said, that was an amazing Hell in a Cell match. These ladies brought it. They did stuff that you've never seen before. And in 2019, that's dang near impossible to pull off. Like the spot where with the chair in the corner of the cell. I've never seen anything like that. That was insane.
So you're giving it match of the night?
It was clear cut match of the night. Probably should have ended the pay-per-view.
After the way it ended, which we'll get to, I'll agree. But before we get there, we're going to stick in the women's division for a little bit, just before we hit our song. We're going to also talk about the women's tag team match, because there, we do have new champions. Asuka learnt the ability to spit some green liquids out of her mouth, and that emerged victorious afterwards.
The Kabuki Warriors are now heels. Imagine that. All it took was them just becoming nasty, and not in the Lacey Evans description of nasty, for them to win the gold.
And it's a decent new attitude as well. We saw it over on Raw, where they were in a back and forth with Becky Lynch and mumble spoilers for 5 minutes from now when we discuss it. And it's leading to some pretty good matchups, which means you're getting great matches. And hopefully they do something as champions, fingers crossed. Although we did joke last week that there wouldn't be a women's tag champion match, and there was. It was the only title match announced last minute, one of 4 on the card. They heard you, Josh, and they made it.
I called them out, and they responded.
They responded really well, too. And so the last women's match, the thing that I just mumbled about, was for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and we got a new champ.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. After Sasha lost, I kind of figured Bayley was losing too.
A bad night for that duo.
Yeah. And Bayley threw a temper tantrum after the match was over, which was hilarious.
It really matches her character as well, so it's like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
But this obviously leads to us having Becky Lynch and Charlotte as our 2 women's champions heading into the new season, heading into the draft specifically. So, what is that going to lead to? Presumably those 2 will not swap brands in the draft, given they have branded championships. Crazier things have happened, but I'll make some assumptions.
I just thought of something funny.
Gotcha, go.
They get drafted at each other's show and then have to defend their titles against the other in the same match and end up winning the other's title.
Nice. I'm interested to see what happens draft-wise with this women's division. As you know, if we're sitting around, we're going, Banks is a little bit hurt, but what's next for her? What's next for Lacey? Natalia, she's picking up wins, she's getting steam. Then you look over on SmackDown, there's so many women who just aren't used now, and you're like, what's going to happen? I think this women's division is really going to see quite a bit of a shake-up post-draft. Especially if NXT is going to be featured prominently in terms of ups and downs. And I don't really want to call them ups and downs, so now I'm going to call them sidewayses. So if there's sidewayses left and right with NXT, I think there could be some real interesting options there. Like Natalia heading down to NXT to take on Shayna Baszler. Could happen.
Yeah. I propose a new tag team. Naomi and Ember Moon.
Yeah. There's so many options, and that's why I think the draft is so great. When, it's open, it's like all the brands involved, and that, previously it's been like, oh, okay, maybe they'll put their top guys on Raw, or, oh, the Foxes want them over here, so they're going to put their top guys over here. And now it feels like both of the brands are legitimately fighting to have the tippy-top rosters.
Yeah, they definitely are. Both shows being on different channels definitely helps. It gives it a different feel for each one. Almost makes it almost feel like they're different companies. Which I think was the original idea behind the original brand split in the first place.
Yeah.
The second coming of that brand split was just because they had too much talent and not enough space. So
we'll see where it goes.
So yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how that draft plays out. we still don't really know how they're going to be doing the picks.
Where it's going to be, schoolyard pick. Maybe they do random roulette that happens to balance out the rosters fairly well. Let's not do random roulette, please. But by the time this airs, you will know how they're doing the draft, and you'll have seen half of it. But we do have to play our song, because we're actually quite a bit through the show. So we are going to put on the theme song. It's Charlotte Flair to represent her 50 millionth Women's Championship victory. And you're back with Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM 89.0 ArrowFM NPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh, and we still have quite a bit of Hell in a Cell to get through. Let's talk about this Tornado Tag Team match, because it didn't go the way we'd both expected the night before. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns coming out on top against Eric Rowan and Luke Harper.
It was a good match. It was a really good match. I am disappointed that Harper and Rowan didn't win, and I'm hoping that they do something with Rowan to get his heat back, because that kind of hurts otherwise. That's it. It may have been to keep Daniel Bryan strong as a babyface, because he may be going over to Raw to fulfill the number one babyface role for Raw, so that Seth Rollins can do other things.
Like being 6 feet under. Yeah, so this will either be, we'll look back at this in maybe like a month's time, and this will either be a little stumbling block for Rowan and Harper, where they pick back up and they keep getting a little bit more momentum and building back up, or this is the point of downfall. So I'm hoping we can look back at it and be like, oh, that was just a little bit of a hitch in the plan, and then they pick it back up. Because I still love these two dudes.
Yeah, they definitely... I still feel they have a plan for Rowan. I'm not sure what it is, but I still feel they have a plan for him. Mm-hmm. I think Harper's just being used just to get something out of him right now.
Fair enough. Well, another match that got put together. Randy Orton, he took out Ali.
It was a good short little match. Couple amazing spots though. Obviously the biggest, most amazing spot was the counter to the RKO. Yeah,
you got to expect it when you put a really talented and sort of unorthodox type guy up against Randy. You're like, oh yeah, how's he going to counter this RKO?
The RKO's never been countered like that.
No, I didn't see how he did it.
Still can't counter the out of nowhere RKO though.
Yeah, I as soon as he did it, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. But definitely didn't see it coming. No, I wouldn't have told you before the match that was going to happen. Popping an old handstand.
Yeah, most of the time, if you want to counter it, you counter it before Randy gets off his feet. Because once Randy gets off his feet and he's extended, you're going down.
Unless you're Ali.
Yep.
There was another tag team match, but this time it was a 6-man tag team match. The Viking Raiders teamed up with Braun Strowman, that's a lot of mass, and took on the OC.
I think we need to play some taps here for the for 2/3 of the club, because they're dead and buried.
Oh.
The only thing saving AJ Styles is the fact that he's AJ Styles and he's the United States champion.
Honestly, if those three men, if Ivar, Eric, and Braun were coming at me and they wanted to hurt me, I would just roll into a ball. I'm done. I'd just start preparing for whatever afterlife might be out there, because you've got no hope. That is a scary group of people.
The way AJ was on rubber legs would be how I would be before they'd even touch me.
But it seems like, the Viking Raiders for quite a few weeks were taking on independent teams, sort of just your local boys, and then they're getting bigger, OC on Hell in a Cell. They defeat the tag champs on Raw. it looks like the Viking Raiders are starting to climb the ladder for the Raw, at the moment, Raw tag team division.
Well, they have a title match on next week's Raw. They could win them.
Entirely possible. The draft is
In fact, I would be shocked if they don't.
That's true.
The only way they don't is if the champs get disqualified.
Yeah. I guess it all comes down to, as you say, how they're doing the draft. You know, if SmackDown's picking all the SmackDown guys on their show, and, you know, they pick the Viking Raiders, and you know they're heading to SmackDown, then I'll see some shenanigan type ending on Raw. But if we don't know, or if they haven't been drafted yet, or if they're not going to be drafted over to SmackDown, then yeah, I think the Viking Raiders might be your new champs. We also have a match where the King falls down to a little wrestler called Chad Gable.
This was another really good match. This whole process has elevated Gable so much compared to where he was when the tournament began. Mm-hmm. This is how you build a star. Imagine that.
Yeah, we do it like once a few years.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I think they're now 1-1, 2-1 if you want to count the disqualification win.
Nah.
For Gable, but that I don't really count that one because that was just a beatdown on King Corbin's part. Mm-hmm. So we obviously need a rubber match, and who wins that match will be definitely very telling.
Mm.
I'm still waiting for Gable to be added to Team Hogan.
Yeah, at the moment, nothing for our Halloween show seems to have been built out matches-wise just yet. We'll have to wait and see. But, you go.
Yeah, the thing was on Raw we were supposed to find out more about those two teams, and we didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if we're waiting for the draft. It seems like a match that's going to bridge brands anyway, so I don't really understand not, letting us know a little bit more about it. But, hey, who knows? Because you've been talking about how great matches earlier in the night are. You've been saying that's a great match. And now we get to talk about the Hell in a Cell match for the Universal Championship between Seth Rollins and The Fiend.
It was a good match. It was a good match. Great story, by the way.
Yeah.
Total great story. And with an alright ending.
No, you meant to hate the ending. Hate the ending!
Yeah, I was going to say, shock. Somebody on the internet doesn't hate the ending of the Hell in a Cell match.
No, it was trash. It was worst ever. Okay?
WWE boxed themselves into a corner here with this booking this match. And I really feel that they came out with the best option short of that they could have. I like The Fiend. It wasn't time to put the title on him. It also was not time to beat him. The only option was a no contest. That made it so that Seth looked absolutely crazed and willing to do anything to hold on to his title.
And then get murdered.
At the same time, The Fiend is unstoppable. You can't keep him down.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how going forward this Fiend is ever going to be able to be beaten.
And that's the problem with strapping him with the title right now. How do you beat him? It would have to be something that would have to be done several months from now, but there's no reason to do it. Put the title on him on Survivor Series. That'll be the right time. And then we'll get to where we're getting. But The Fiend only started wrestling regularly, technically, with this match. I mean, it's only like his third match since creating the character?
Yeah, roughly that, yeah.
It was simply, the people hated the ending because they didn't get what they wanted. They wanted The Fiend as champion. They wanted to completely ignore the building of the story or the telling of the story, and they just wanted their instant gratification of seeing Bray Wyatt as champion.
Where had you got that?
And they didn't get it.
See what happened when you got it last time? Just chill.
Yeah, it lasted a month.
Chill out. wait, and you'll be fine.
Enjoy the process. They're taking us on a ride. Let's see where they take us.
And we don't even know if these guys are going to be on the same brand or where the Fiend's headed. Because, I don't know, but it seems a little weird for someone to be drafting the Fiend. So I don't know if he's also going to float. But it seems like they want it pretty locked down as well, so I don't know. Do you really want to take like a weird possessed murderer onto your brand? That seems like a thing that's going to like raise your insurance premiums quite a bit.
The Fox apparently seems interested in them.
Yeah. Interested, perplexed. These are close enough to synonyms. Alright, well, that is all we have time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, and we'll come at you next week with the results of both halves of the draft.